have to be taken into consideration is the technology readiness level. I don't know how many of you have heard about the TRL scale before, but it has been widely adopted by the European Commission and the EU as a whole to assess how mature the technology really is. The scale was developed in 70s, I believe, by NASA, but it has grown a lot from that point on. And we have virtually three parts of the TRL scale. The first one is the yellow one. This part presents research-heavy part of the technology development from the concept, from very, very basic research to some in-house, in-lab validation, but still you are unable to show, to present your product or solution outside of the company at this point. When you are able to present an MVP or early prototype, this means that you have already entered TRL 6, meaning this red zone, and then development starts. So the first phase is research heavy, the other is development heavy, and then at TRL 9, you are entering the market, you are testing the solution, testing the technology with actual users in the actual environment, so on the market. This scale is not perfect because there are different industries, different technologies. So on the web, you can find TRL scales customized for AI, for biotech, medtech solutions, and others, which gives you more clarity on how to understand and interpret different TRL levels for your particular technology. One of the supporting tools that is being used by the EU for several years now is the business readiness level. It kind of mimics the TRL, but looks at the technology from more market-related aspect. So on the research part, we are going from the initial concept of the technology to hypothesis testing. Then at BRL 6, we are entering the MVP phase, up to scaling the technology. And at BRL 9, we are fully embedded in the market. Other criteria that you may find are focus on civilian applications, unless you are applying to a program that has like a defense purpose or military purpose. You have to comply with the do no significant harm principle. Most of the programs do not allow human cloning or any cloning related activities. You have to go through very in-depth ethics and security self-assessment. And then you have to watch carefully on the requirements regarding the TRL. Programs that are marked as RAA, research and innovation activities, they are for TRL 1 to 5 technologies. IA, innovation activities, are for TRL 6 to 8 activities, and market deployment and scaling activities, MA, are for TRL 9 technologies. Now, I think the most interesting part for most of you, so current funding opportunities. Before we jump into the details, I want to emphasize that international stage is the most difficult stage there is for obtaining EU funding. Since you are Ukrainian startups, you will naturally be focusing or looking at what's available on the international level. But I can also imagine that at least some of you will be thinking or already have created sister companies or daughter companies in some EU member states. That would mean that you have national or regional EU funding available to these subsidiaries. And I encourage you strongly to explore these options first before you jump into the international level. It's much easier to obtain funding nationally than internationally. Just looking at the competition size and the excellence of the competition. On the international level, you have the best of the best. And this is what you are facing. The requirements are sky high. So especially if you are new to EU funding, sometimes it's a wasted effort to apply internationally. You should try to focus on some lower level funding measures that are much more available, easier to get. And sometimes they offer similar amounts of money. So this is, I think, this no-brainer if you have this opportunity. That said, let's look at the money that's available on the EU level. So both the financial framework for 7 years, because EU budget is always crafted for 7 years, and the next generation EU budget, so post-COVID budget, they account for about 2 trillion euros. And this money is spread across different programs. What we are looking at are sectoral specialist programs, which is only a part of the whole EU budget structure. And within these specialist programs, I want to tell you about 4, only 4. There are around 17 or 18 of them, but these are the most interesting. Single Market Program, Digital Europe, Horizon Europe, and EUREKA, Eurostars, which partially is included in the Horizon Europe, but not entirely. So, in the Single Market Program, what you need to know is that Ukraine is currently negotiating the possibility to access the SMP. Right now, this is not an fully eligible program for you. So I won't be focusing much on it. 2 things that are very attractive there, once Ukraine startups are eligible, is the Enterprise Europe network, when you can search for partnerships and build your network. And the other one is the Erasmus for young entrepreneurs. This is a very interesting tool where people who are new to some business or technological area can go abroad and stay at a target company from a different EU country in their business and learn how to do the business actually in their field, and then come back to Ukraine or the country of origin and just use this knowledge to build their company. Digital Europe program is almost twice as large as the Single Market Program. Ukraine is associated to DEP from September of last year, so you are eligible to participate here. And the key objective of the DEP program is to invest in AI, advanced computing, big data, data handling, cybersecurity, but also developing all the digital skills necessary to use these tools and implement them. And currently, you have 10 programs, 10 calls for proposals active under the DEP. Unfortunately, most of them have a deadline, a submission deadline on February 15, so in a week time. One is open until March, and 2 calls will be open till April the 4th. But I hope that the DEP will open some new calls for proposals later on. From the open calls for proposals, you might be interested in the 3 that I highlighted here. Obviously, the presentation will be available to you after we finish. So in order to not to use too much of your time, I will just go quickly through other slides, but you can just jump in here and see what lies behind the links here. Importantly, these programs under DEP, they offer funding rate from 50 to 100%, depending on the call of the proposals. So pretty attractive funding. Now, Horizon Europe, the biggest one, and the most prominent program. Almost 100 billion euros in this program. This is the key funding program for research and innovation in the EU. Obviously, Ukraine is associated with Horizon Europe from 2022. So you can participate in these programs. Horizon Europe has 3 pillars. The first one, excellent science. This is for scientists, for people who are working on universities, in research institutions. They can use the European Research Council funding, Marie Skłodowska-Curie funding, or research infrastructures. This is for the universities themselves to build new research facilities. And for individual grant applicants, you have ERC POC grants, proof of concept grants. They are very interesting if there are any researchers listening to us, because ERC POC grant opens the door for you to the EIC, so European Innovation Council transition program. And this is a program with a very narrow eligibility criteria. So it's, if you are early in your research and you have a career on the university as a researcher, you may want to go through the ERC program first before jumping into more business-oriented EIC framework. The second pillar, the largest one, global challenges and industrial competitiveness. It has several clusters like health, culture, digital industry, climate, food, bioeconomy, and all sorts of topics there. It's a huge, huge pillar. Currently, there are over 970 calls for proposals open only in Pillar 2. So depending on the scope of your proposal, you have to go to the funding and tenders platform on your own, or try to have a consultant who will help you to screen through all these opportunities and find a proper program for you that fits your requirements, the scope of your proposal, the budget size, and so on. Now, the most interesting, Pillar 3, Innovative Europe. This is where the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, EIT, resides, European Innovation Council, EIC, and European Innovation Ecosystems. All 3 of them are very interesting, depending on what you need and what you are doing. Unfortunately, in the EIT part of the program, there are no open calls for proposals today, but there are some initiatives that are on the horizon, like Supernovas or Bridgehead program, and you can read more about them on the EIT website. As regards the European Innovation Council, we have 3 sub-programs, sub-mechanisms within Pathfinder, Transition, and Accelerator, and 3 of them are attributed to different technology readiness levels that I mentioned before. So for early technologies, TRL 1 to 3/4, you have the EIC Pathfinder. Then, when you exceed the experimental or laboratory proof of concept stage, EIC Transition is open to you. But you need to bring the results of a previous EIC funded program to be eligible for transition. And this is the tricky part here. And with EIC transition, you can grow your technology and business up to TRL 6. Then at TRL 6, the door are open for EIC Accelerator, which is a flagship program within the EIC, the one that everyone is talking about, with 2.5 million funding and up to 15 million of potential equity funding. I will talk about this more in a minute. So as regards Pathfinder, Pathfinder is an early TRL program. It focuses on very high risk, but also high gain innovations, something that's absolutely game changing. What you need to focus on is the combination of different technologies, a combination that's not only multidisciplinary, but interdisciplinary. The difference being that interdisciplinary research is the research that combines scientific domains that normally don't come together. But due to the fact that you are combining them, you are creating this unique additional value that helps you advance the research in a given field and opens the door for further research in Europe and globally. So you are setting the stage for something absolutely game-changing. The grant you can expect here is up to 3 or up to 4 million euros. Funding rate is 100%, and you can apply through the open call, which has no limitations regarding the topic, and challenge calls, which are defined by the European Commission. And the deadlines are March 7th for the open call and October 18th for the challenges. In the EIC transition, like I said, it's a kind of an intermediate step in the EIC framework. It's a runner-up funding mechanism where you add business aspects to the early stage technology that you have developed previously. The transition still offers a 100% funding rate, which is very attractive, and relatively high funding amount of up to 2.5 million euros. Again, you have the possibility to apply via the open and challenges call. The challenges, however, are different than in the Pathfinder. So this is something that you can focus on. So in the EIC Pathfinder, transition, and accelerator, there are completely different sets of challenges that you can apply to. And the dates you have here. The EIC accelerator. So this is the mechanism that's designed especially for deep tech companies that struggle with this valley of death, meaning that they have gone through the intense research part and they've obtained interesting and very promising results, but there is a funding gap between ending the high-risk research and entering the market. And there is still not enough investors, deep tech investors in Europe to help you go through this valley of death. And this is where the EIC accelerator comes handy, because they offer not only 2.5 million of a grant, although you can apply even for more, but you can also get this 15 million euros of equity investment, where the EU gives more or less half of it. The other part has to be raised from private investors. So EU is only a co-investors in this part. Important notice here, if your technology is deemed as strategic for the whole EU, then you can get even more in the equity part, and there is no ceiling there. So on the grant part, the funding rate is lower than in the previous mechanism. It's only 70%. But on the equity part, obviously, it's 100%. And here we also have open and challenges calls. When you're looking at the deadlines, please be aware that developing the proposal, first of all, it's a 3-step process to apply to the EAC accelerator. And the amount of information that has to be covered and processed is just huge. So the whole process takes 6 months, sometimes more. I've had clients that needed 1 year to go through the whole process once. I even have one client who I'm working with since June 2021, so basically from the beginning of UpSpark, and we've applied 2 times to the EAC accelerator. We've reached the interview stage with them, and then now we are resubmitting again. And the effort required to go through this process so many times, it's over 1,000 working hours already. So this is the effort that you won't have basically in any other program. It's very resource heavy. Now, the final part of the Pillar 3 European innovation ecosystem, you have 2 key mechanisms here. Women Tech EU and EUREKA network. Women Tech EU, this is a mechanism especially for or exclusively for women, co-founders and leaders of deep tech startups. You can get up to 75k euros for the analysis required to bring your business and technology to a certain maturity level to allow you to get going with it. So everything related to designing the process, designing the product, designing the solution, doing market research, doing IP analysis, market validations, everything is in this box. Apart from that, you get a lot of mentoring and coaching from the international coaches. The program for 2023 and 24 will be set up very soon. Right now, the EU has organized a call for an entity that will manage the Women Tech EU initiative. And we are expecting the calls for startups, women-led startups in the second part of the year. Finally, EUREKA network. This is a special mechanism because it's partially funded from the Horizon Europe program, but partially part of the budget comes from individual contributions from the countries that are members of the EUREKA network. So the budget is constructed from 2 money flows. And this is the world's biggest network for international cooperation in R&D. And there are many programs here. Unfortunately, not all of them are eligible for Ukrainian entities. For instance, Eurostars program, called also Innovative SMEs, is not yet available to you, but I hope it will be soon. However, a very similar initiative called EUREKA Network Project is eligible. It's designed for TRL 326/7 technologies. However, important notice here is that your Ministry of Education has decided to give very little money per year per Ukrainian participant. So I expect Ukrainian participants to do only a slight part of work under every proposal. So you won't be able to be a project leader, only a project partner, and in a very, very narrow scope with 8.5 thousand euros per year per Ukrainian participant. So finally, key takeaways as regards the current funding opportunities. You need to be aware that there are plenty of opportunities out there. The landscape is vast, and you need to take your time to narrow down this huge list to the programs you want to apply to or even want to analyze in detail. This is where some help may be handy. When you are looking at the programs, try to build a strategy around it. Choose only the ones that are really closely related to what you actually want to do. You should avoid changing your business strategy or trying to stretch your technology or solution to a given program. If you stretch it too much, then you will end up developing a technology that you don't want to develop, that's far away from the core, technological core that you had in mind when you started your company. And this is not feasible in long term. Establish project objectives and realistic timeline and have a plan B. So if possible, search for funding measures on a national level, maybe even on regional level, something that you can use instead of any international program or as a switch to it. When you are dealing with EU funding, don't expect, especially if you are working with consultants, don't expect that consultants will do the heavy lifting for you. They can prepare a lot of material, but they need the input. This is the key part. If you are not engaged enough and you don't provide good input, then even if you have the best consultants, you won't end up with a good project. You have to be really focused and give the high priority to developing the EU grant proposal. Build a team around it, secure the competence. You want all your core members of the company to be active and to participate in developing the proposal. Because as I said, especially on the international level, these programs are extremely competitive. So you need to do your best to even have a chance to secure the funding. Now, I hope I didn't use too much of your time. Please, I'm open to all of your questions.
Thanks a lot, Jakub. It was really fantastic workshop, and we will, of course, save it to our YouTube channel so that everyone can review and even remind all the key facts and details regarding all the opportunities from the EU funding that you mentioned. Regarding the questions, we have one in our chat. So question is the following. Is EPC number is a number of employees or some mark of the capital?
Yes, EPC is the full-time equivalent. It means that you have one EPC if one person hired full-time is working at the company for the whole year. This is one EPC. If this one person is hired full-time, but he or she works only for 6 months, then you report 0.5 EPC. It gets more complex if you have more people and different types of agreements. And this is why I always encourage you to discuss this with your HR department and your accountant.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your response. And I just coming back to our chat and I see no other questions for this moment. But if there will be any, you can contact me and I will just reach to you directly to clarify some details if there will be any. So by this time, thank you very much for this intensive workshop. I think your slides presentation and all the comments were very effective. I believe Ukrainian startups will use these opportunities. Just use all these tools for their business, for their startups in early stages, and to develop their own projects. So thank you very much, Jakub, for your time. for your efforts to support Ukrainian startups, and hope to see you the next time with our events as a speaker. So wish you everything the best and stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much.